Hi, can I speak to James Farley, please?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, is that what you do?
When?
Don't you do that speaking?
No.
Oh, you got to do that. That's what I did all the time.
Really?
Hello, can I
Okay,
speak to David Turner, please? Yeah, speaking.
Okay.
Is that not like a normal thing to do?
What did I say?
You said, yeah, okay. Or something like that. I can't remember. But it wasn't normal. It's not what I expected to hear. I thought
Well,
you were going to go...
It's because I wasn't expecting you to open with that. So
do you remember? Like
odd.
when you used to ring your mate when you were at like school or whatever? You were, oh, can I speak to Gareth, please? Or if you'd knock on their door, like if they lived in your road or whatever.
Is Gareth in?
Is Gareth in? Can Gareth come out, please?
It's crazy that, isn't it? Because you just think like we just had one phone, it's just like a landline phone.
Yeah. Do you think that still happens now? Like, are you still going to get knocks on your door?
Nah.
Like, oh, can Asher come out and play, please?
They've already all like planned it, haven't they? On like Bebo or whatever.
Yeah. They've all sorted it out on Roblox.
Yeah, it's all done. So.
Can you get Asher a VR helmet so we can play, please? Mr. Farley. And that was something I never did. I never called the kid, like my mate's parents, Mr. and Mrs.
Yeah.
Know what I mean?
I just called them like whoever's dad or whoever's mum. Do you know what I mean?
I mean to their face. You can't just go, hello, Brian's dad.
Yeah.
Did you do that, James?
I did do that, actually, I think, sometimes. Yeah.
You fucking weirdo.
But no, mate, we just avoid saying anything. Like, just avoid talking to them as much as possible.
I mean, that's what you do. You just walk in, you go, hi. That's it. That's the long and short of the conversation you have.
So what to do? You used to go like, hello, Mr. Turners?
Well, they usually owe me money on a couple of bets. So I had to go collect. All right. Should we talk about Attack of the Clones?
Yeah, because, I mean, I've rewatched this in preparation for this because I wanted to make sure that the viewpoint that I had was accurate, because it's been like several years since I last saw this film, and I thought I need to go back and watch this. And, yeah, I mean, what do you want me to do? I mean, do you want me to say what I think?
No, I kind of just want to go through my notes, because...
Yeah, because I've also got loads of notes as well.
Yeah, see if you've hit the same beats. Like, you know what I mean? It's weird because, I mean, you've noticed it, but there's big portions of these films where I don't make a note. And so, yeah, maybe I've missed something that you picked up on, but I think it'd be interesting. An interesting chat, anyway. So let's just get straight into it with no indication of what I thought about the film.
Yeah, okay.
Right, okay. So first note says, not expecting much. Let's see how this goes. Right. I had the lowest expectation of this film out of all of them. You know what I mean?
That probably would have helped. Like, but yeah, go on.
Possibly. I was expecting, because you'd said it like it was a love story or whatever. Yeah. I was expecting no action, nothing. You know what I mean? That it was literally just these two characters on screen for the majority of it.
It's Star Wars, isn't it? There's definitely going to be action.
Well, yeah, but I didn't okay, yeah, that is been a theme running throughout all these films, but it was the way you spoke about it, James. You once described it as one of the worst films of all time. So
yeah, okay, that was a bit of hyperbole, but definitely one of the worst science fiction films I've ever seen.
Okay,
I still think, but yeah, go on.
All right, here we go. Okay, opening text. Okay, not too bad this time. More simple than episode 1. Several systems wanting to leave the Republic forming an army to assist Jedis. I'm not really, again, you know, this was a problem I had with the first one. Mm-hmm. The Jedis, I kind of like, how are you fitting into this really? Because you're not on either side, but you seem to be following orders from... They're following orders from the Republic at this stage, yeah?
Yeah. They're basically just police, if you know what I mean. Just with fancy swords, going around helping people.
Okay. Jesus Christ, that ship blowing up at the start, that's more action in that one scene than I thought there would be in the whole film. Quite shocking. Okay. Okay, fine.
Hang on. Have you got any more about that ship blowing up and everything?
Not really, why?
Because that was dreadful. That was
why,
like the way that opens, where you've got like that set the tone in terms of like the acting, like right from the beginning. How you've got that guy just like saying, "Oh, we made it. It's seems like nothing bad has happened. And then, like,
Right, okay, yeah, I see.
It's
I see
terrible.
your point. I see your point with that, but I thought it was still quite shocking. You know, if I rewatch that scene, I'd be like rolling my eyes. But
Yeah.
watching it for the first time, I didn't know that ship was going to blow up,
Yeah.
and I didn't expect it. So when it blew up, I was like, kind of like, holy fuck! Right, okay, we're kicking off, are we? But yeah, I
Also-
mean, there's some acting
also-
problems in this film, and I think that is
just a bit.
that pales in comparison.
That guy who was with her at the beginning. Do you know there was that guy that you talked about last time in Phantom Menace? Who you were like, who is that guy? Is he supposed to
The
be
Street
somebody
Fighter
important?
guy, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, Captain Panenka, I think his name was.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was supposed to be him in the film.
Right, so they got a new actor.
Well, no, because what happened, because I looked this up because I was curious, and it turned out that the actor, they invited him back, like, to do it again, but he asked to see the whole script, and they wouldn't let him, so he just passed on it and said, no, I'm not interested then.
Right, because he's in it later as well, isn't it? And I thought,
Yeah,
I think
that
that's
was
the
supposed to
same
be
guy
him.
because he's dressed like a Street Fighter character again, but he looks quite different. Like, it's not...
Different guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I thought so, because I recognise the guy from Phantom Menace. He's been in a lot of other things, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Can't remember who it was,
I
but
can
yeah.
never pinpoint people. Like, my wife is really good at just like watching something and going, oh, that's such and such from, you know, this film or that TV program. Yeah, she picks up really quickly. I'm dreadful at that. Right, okay. I've put this is a quote that I've written down. Seeing you alive brings warmth to my heart. Good to know that even in the supposedly bad films, Yoda is still great.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
That's not one of the worst lines in the film. Like, it's certainly not
I
one
don't
of the
think it was
worst.
a bad line.
It was
I
alright.
thought it was a good line. I think it was just quite nice. I fucking love Yoda at this point.
Well, there is that, but then there's also the fact that there's no relationship has been established between those two before.
I don't
Do you
think
know what I
that, mate. That is such like. By the end of this film, that is just I can't even pick that out as a negative. Like,
Okay.
if we're talking relationships not being built up right, we'll get
Okay,
there.
come on, we'll get to that.
Count Dooku, is that his name? Count
Yeah.
Dooku or whatever. How do you
Dooku,
pronounce
yeah.
it?
Count Dooku.
Count Dooku. I've written it down a lot in these notes, and I'm pretty sure I've written it in about 40 different ways. So it's a real shame that some of the names in this are so shit, isn't it?
Yep.
Who come up with that? George
Well,
Lucas.
also, I
Go
mean,
on.
and also, like, with him, like, he's mentioned in the opening crawl, and then he's mentioned throughout the film, but you don't see him until right at the end.
You're
pretty much.
jumping way
You know?
too far ahead.
But
You're
it's
jumping
true.
way too far ahead.
You know, go on.
You've got right. Okay, I'm going through this as I'm watching it for the first time. You're viewing it as a whole package.
I know. Cool.
Okay. Jar Jar's here. Pretty ballsy to continue with him. I notice he's not saying much now, and he's been
No.
on screen for 2 minutes and hasn't fallen over. So, you know,
Yeah.
a bit of an improvement over the last film in that regard.
Yeah.
Anakin giving it the big one to Obi-Wan. Luke is definitely his son. He was, though. It was like, he was way worse than Luke was in the first 3 films with that sort of stuff. But
Oh, come on. But there was also, I mean, there was those lines there when he sees, like, Padme again, and then he's, like, saying stuff like, you've grown
Yeah,
more
I mean-
beautiful, I mean. Come on.
Just we'll cover all this, James. We will cover it all.
But I just wrote down there, Anakin is an arsehole, also thinking with his dick the whole time. Was
James, you I'll tell you what you're like, right? You're like a 4-year-old on sports day who's just really excited to run, but just keeps pelting it before they say ready,
I'll shut
steady,
up
go.
and You just get on with it. Go on.
If I go past you in your notes and I miss something, you could drag me back.
Right,
but don't just go, yeah, and what about that bit where Yoda gets a lightsaber? Just fuck. Well, okay.
It's just so bad. Go on, just get on with it. Go on.
Right. Anakin laying it on a bit thick with the Queen. What was her name again? I've written it down later on when
It's
I learned
Queen
it.
Amidala, but she's also Padme.
Right, okay, sorry, I missed a note. I put, call me crazy, but I'm 10 minutes in, and the intro has been great. Well structured, simple to follow, way more normal than most of episode 1. And what I mean by that is that we were 10 minutes into the film, and I knew why everyone was where they were, and I knew what the story was, right? Like, I was with it. Whereas, like, 10 minutes into episode 1, I was already going, I'm starting to lose it a little bit. So I thought the intro was way better structured than the first film, than episode 1.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd certainly agree with that. I mean, yeah, actually also no, she's not Queen Amidala by this point, is she?
No, she's
no longer a queen. Yeah, she's Senator Amidala. There you go. Yeah,
that's the one. And then I put, it's a shame that it's been set in interiors though, because like one of the things I love about Star Wars is the sets, right, and the settings, and Cloud City and others. It's just like the scenery is always pretty good, and the fact that the majority of the first part of this film is set in like hallways and stuff is kind of like, oh, this is really disappointing, go outside. But then they do go outside, and it starts off with Obi-Wan smashing through the window and catching a flying robot. And I put, man, this film has started really well. Also, the city looks stunning. Chase scene in flying cars, great stuff. Obi-Wan needs to sort Anakin out, though. He's a right little punk. Right, okay, so before we get onto the actual car chase scene, like, I've got to ask you, what is your feeling towards the start of this film? That this is the first real action scene, this sort of car chase scene. Like, what did you think of it?
Okay, so watching back with this, I actually was beginning to feel, this is not as bad as I remember. It's I'm quite enjoying this actually. Like the beginning of that, I think is quite good. Like you said, I think visually it's aged, but not terribly, particularly right at the beginning.
I thought it had some really great moments as well. Like, where there was a sniper aiming at the robot that Obi-Wan was holding on to.
And then blows it away, doesn't it? And then he falls.
The shot of him with all that neon sort of screens in the back, I thought that looked fantastic.
Yeah.
And there was loads of that as well. Even when they land and they got run on foot for a bit, it looked really good. I was really surprised, but also the action was really well choreographed. There was a few, moments where you're like, come on, how has he got there? How has he caught that lightsaber? There's some weird shit like that. But for the majority of it, I thought this is really thrilling stuff. Like, I was
I agree. I agree that it does start quite well, and also one of the reasons for that is because it's very focused in the beginning as to what's going on, and there's also not a lot going on like visually in all of those scenes. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's more like the original trilogy in the sense that they're really just focusing on those two rather than just like cutting between things.
I see what you mean. Totally. Yeah, you're following this action. It doesn't cut away from it. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Okay, the person they're chasing just removed their mask. Were we supposed to know who they were? So I thought that was like a reveal moment, but then you soon realise that that wasn't supposed to be a reveal moment. It's just someone taking their mask off. Why did her face change like that when she looked to the right? Yeah. That was creepy, man.
That was another thing that I didn't really... Like, I watched that back and I was just thinking, why did they... Because obviously this is supposed to be like a shape-changing assassin, but then there's no point to it at all. Like,
I sort of mentioned that. I put... then she looks again and it doesn't change. What the fuck? Then I put... Right, so we'll skip through this a little bit. Nightclub scene, they're playing the pod racer game on the big screen. That's a nice touch. It's also nice to know that they've got video games in this universe, so that was pretty cool. I was all up for that, but I'm assuming that was actually footage from the pod racer game.
I don't know, I don't really remember seeing that.
You didn't see it, right? So when they first walk into a nightclub, look at the screens. They've got these huge screens, there's like 4 or 5 of them, and the one you only see half of it. It's on the far left. You see like a pop racer game, and like part of me thinks, oh, it's a bit shit that they've put that in there, but the majority of me thinks, actually, if there were video games in existence in this world, then there probably would be a pop racer game, wouldn't there? And it's pretty cool that they've just used, I think they've used the footage from the actual game as well. What do
you reckon? Do you reckon it was the Dreamcast version or the N64?
I'm going to go N64.
You think so, yeah?
Yeah, the green Dreamcast was wank.
We're not doing that. We're not doing that on it.
Right, okay, where are we? The face changed again when she died. Why wear a mask then, if she can do that? Completely
makes no sense. Also, going back to the bar, what did you think of that whole scene in the bar? Because I quite liked all of that.
I thought it was quite good. I think it was a little bit cliche You know,
Yeah.
Obi-Wan going up and having a drink didn't sit right with me either. You know what I mean? It was like, what's going on here? You know, there was things to complain about it, right? If you really gave a shit, but I didn't. I thought this is actually really cool. I like this. I like the setting. I like the action and the fact they just turn around and did he lob her arm off?
Yeah, well, because you know
there's
that
some
all
sort
that
of
was
obsession with that.
Well, no, because that's like a callback to episode 4, isn't it? You know, like in the cantina, like he does exactly the same move there, where he slices that dude's arm off.
In episode 4. Oh, he does, doesn't he? Yeah. I don't know. I didn't think that.
Same movement and everything, and it's like. But then also, I mean, I like that. You know, the Death Sticks guy as well. You know, where he does the old mind trick thing. That was all right. You know, that was quite good.
Well, I mean, we'll come back to this, but I do think that they got the gags right this time compared to the first one. There's a few gags in this that actually land, and I was quite surprised. There's a few that don't, but I mean, compared to episode 1, where nothing was like there was barely any decent gags in it, this one actually had a few. And I think I noted them down. I can't really remember. I watched this last night, so it's been 24 hours of my life since then, so I tend to forget a lot. Okay, 25 minutes in now, and wondering how the hell this could turn bad. So far, it's been great. Story clear, action brilliant, visually stunning. Anakin is incredibly unlikable, but his relationship with Obi-Wan is way more interesting than the two Jedis in episode 1. Because it was something I complained about at the end of episode 1, that their relationship, there was nothing there. There was no turbulence. There was no interesting aspect to their relationship. It was just, you know, we're going about doing our thing. And here, at least, you're seeing the struggles of a master trying to control their apprentice, and their apprentice. Okay, it is, you know, incredibly poorly written in places, in a lot of places, but at least there was something there. There was a struggle between these two characters, so it sort of kept my interest a little bit more than those two did. It's well weird. In episode 1, it was clear that Palp was the Emperor. But it never really communicated how much of a big deal that was. It didn't, did it? Because he was plotting a plan in episode 1, trying to play off both sides, right?
Yeah.
But it never, because of the confusion about everything, that never really come across as like a big thing. Am I wrong in thinking that?
I think, yeah, because there were people definitely that came out of that cinema not really knowing even that, like, Palpatine and, like, the shadowy dude were the same person.
I mean, I knew that, but it was kind of like, if you're playing off both sides, communicate to the audience better what the plan is. Like, why are you playing them off? That's what I didn't understand. Why are you playing these two sides off? Like, to what end? Yeah. They never really got that across. And this time it's a little bit more clear, isn't it? That, you know, it's just a little bit more shocking seeing him doing what he was doing in this film than it was.
Do you mean like, okay, so do you mean like him being like a senator or whatever and being seen all nice and then actually, what the other stuff that's going on behind the scenes, as it were? Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, I just had that feeling that it's a little bit more clear in this one. And it seemed like, okay, I'm following things. Anakin is even more of a creeper than Han Solo. Yeah, I've got that written down exactly the same. Really? Yes, because that was the thing. Like, the way he looks at her is just amazing. The way he looks at her, the words that he says. Yeah, I get to it, but there's a moment where he just lays his hands on her, completely unsolicited. Yes, I know, and it's like. It is amazing. All of that is absolutely amazing. Like, we'll get to that. We'll summarise that later because I've got a note specifically about all of this stuff. I mean, because I just said it. I said because there's that. Can I just do this line? Because this is what she said. Yeah, he's excited. She says, "Please don't look at me like that. It makes me feel uncomfortable." And then I've written down, you and me both. I mean, fucking hell, that creepy look. This is way worse than anything that Han did. Like, absolutely, totally agreed. Four-armed frog thing in the calf hugging Obi-Wan while pulling up his trousers. Good. Gag. Hugging Obi-Wan and pulling up his trousers at the same time was a brilliant gag. And
that character's name was Drex, and
Yep.
I thought he was really cool. You know, for a CGI character, there's a low bar in Star Wars for CGI characters.
Yeah.
He was a very good one, I think. I mean, he didn't offer too much. He was a bit of a side character, but I really liked him. I thought, that is a cool character. Don't sound like you agree.
Well, no, I thought it was fine. What did you think of the bar? Because I thought like that sort of like 1950s style American bar was a bit weird and out of place.
Yeah, well, I've said it before. I don't like it when they ape, not real life, but the sort of things from Earth. You know what I mean? It's like when they try and mirror that, it just seems a bit off. But
That's what I mean. It looked like a diner. And
exactly. It was an American diner, and that's what it was supposed to be. But but I didn't hate it. I'll be honest, I didn't hate it. I thought that was quite a cool scene. Okay. Anakin has a hard-on for 90% of this film. He's starting to get really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So, that was just some more scenes with Anakin talking to Amidala in the worst way.
Where are we now? Whereabouts are we, though?
So we're just about to go... So Obi-Wan has discovered that there's a missing planet or missing star system from the archives, and he's going to talk to Yoda about it now. Mm-hmm. That's where we're at.
Okay.
Right, so I just put, oh God, the kids talking to Yoda are incredibly cute. Didn't you like that, at least? I mean, you got a heart.
Yeah.
With their little helmets on and that, mate. There's one point of you where you going, that is pretty cute.
I know, but it all just sounded so staged. I don't know, I didn't like it.
I didn't know, I thought they got away with that. I thought they were the right side of that, for that bit. And then I put, look, so far, this has been great, but Anakin's character is way off base. It's like he's been written by a 12-year-old. We get it, you fancy the girl. We get it, you're arrogant. It's drumming the extremes of his character into your face over and over again. There's bits where it's like, when you're putting a film together, each scene has to have a purpose. It has to have a reason for being there. And we have seen 3 scenes now, by this point, where Anakin is essentially doing the same thing, saying the same thing. Anakin is saying, I really fancy you, and Obi-Wan's winding me up, and he's always having a go at me. And then you're like, okay, it's establishing that he's got an attraction for Amidala. It's establishing that he's a bit bitter about his relationship with Obi-Wan. Okay, we get that. Next scene, I really do fancy you though, and that Obi-Wan, he's really winding me up. Okay, we've established that. We don't need to establish it again, it's fine. Anyway, have I ever told you that I really fucking fancy you? And while I'm telling you this, I should mention that Obi-Wan is really getting on my tits. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of like, why are we repeating this over and over again? Either progress it or move on and to something different. And it really was like the lines themselves. It was like he'd only just read Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
Like he'd found it under his bed and he thought that no one had heard that story before and he would nick a bit. You know what I mean? But wrote it worse.
That was the worst thing because, I mean, I've got a whole list of, things that he said that are just appalling. In terms of,
Go on, I want to hear it. Just do the quotes.
I mean, this is one of them. I'm haunted by the kiss that you should never have given me. I mean...
that was
what
so
is that?
Awful. Yeah,
and then also him saying, you're in my very soul, tormenting me. I mean, it's appalling, isn't it? I mean, that's the worst thing because the thing is throughout the original trilogy, the dialogue between Han and Leia was always simple. Often it could be touching and it was on point all the time. But this,
not all the time. Not all the time.
Most of the time, it was.
In Empire, when they first got together, it was terrible. When she first kissed him, it was terrible because he was basically a predator.
He was
following her around the ship, and I know people adore these films, and I think it's easier to overlook that stuff when you love the film as a whole. But the build up once they were together. then it was quite an interesting relationship from that point. But
Yeah.
the build up to it was awful. Just hunting
also-
her around and grabbing hold of her and not letting her go and stuff, and then suddenly out of nowhere she just kisses him. I'm kind of like, why are you doing that?
I don't think that was out of nowhere, because
It
I
was.
think it was not, because
It was
if you
absolutely
think
out of nowhere.
he'd been flirting with her since the first film, and like maybe obviously in a creepy way, but it didn't
And
come
she'd
out of
been
nowhere.
rejecting him for the whole
Yeah.
film. I'm not questioning Han Solo liked Princess Leia.
Yeah.
I'm questioning why Leia rejected. Then he
Yeah.
went to the extremes, and then she kissed him. It was like, that doesn't
but Dave,
scream Princess Leia to me. Princess Leia is so much better than that.
Okay, yeah, but that was 1980s, and none of that was as bad as this.
Yeah, okay, I totally agree.
Han Solo didn't stand there
Yeah.
and then say, "Here, everything is soft and smooth," and then stare at her tits and try to stroke her back.
Okay, look. I agree with you. It is worse in this movie, but what
Yeah.
I'm saying is that you're doing exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know.
Is going to happen. You're trying to forgive it because you're a fan of that film, and this is worse. That was bad in Empire, and I mean, I noted it at the time. It was it just didn't work. Like, if you take the nasty side away from it, it still didn't work as a relationship, because there was no connection there up until that point. Now, don't get me wrong, once they were together, their relationship completely changed, and it was complex, but it was still a relationship. There was an affection for one another, but they still showed anger towards each other and frustrations and stuff like that, and it was handled better. But that, from the start of Empire to the point where they kissed, that was shit. You know, their relationship just shit, I thought.
Well, yeah, it was. I mean, their relationship. I wouldn't say they definitely had a relationship. It's just that it was a antagonistic relationship.
Yeah,
and
it was. Yeah, totally.
The way it became that, maybe that could have been done maybe more smoothly than it was.
Yeah, and do you know what? I'm not even like properly having a go at that film. What I'm saying is that George Lucas has got previous.
Yeah, he's absolutely, yeah. But he's got previous, but then also got worse. Is what's
Yeah, God, yeah. It's like a criminal moving on to a harder crime, and you go, well, he did do some bad shit back then as well, and you go, yeah, but it's not as bad as it. No, but it was still bad. The signs were there. Right,
it's just they were covered by better acting.
I have the same opinion on Sand as Anakin does. Fuck Sand is a name that I put down. But more to the point, why have we got Anakin Skywalker talking about how much he hates sand in a Star Wars?
That has become. I mean, that became like a meme.
No, I had no idea. I genuinely had no idea.
People have taken the piss for ages about that.
Why?
And there was. Because it's a terrible line. All of that is terrible. And even at conventions, like he's been at conventions, people like ask questions.
Yeah.
One of the first questions somebody asked him was, "What do you think of Sands?" But then to his credit, the guy did just repeat the lines,
That's good.
from it, which is pretty good.
I like that,
but it is terrible. That was really. I mean,
but yeah,
also,
I hate Sand. So
yeah.
I connected with that character, James. I connected with him. You must hate Sand as well, right?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Sand.
I
hate beaches.
Yeah,
so
I hate beaches. I don't hate beaches when I'm quite happy to go to the beach, but it's just getting the sand off and that. You get in the car and you're fucking hoovering the shit out for just fucking nightmare. Sorry, anyway. Back to the Star Wars film.
I mean, it's hard and coarse, and it gets everywhere. It's the thing.
Oh my God, he's touching her now out of nowhere. Now she's kissing him. Why? She's shown no interest in him before now.
Yeah.
And I come back to all this, so in fact, I'll come back to it really soon. Okay, the clones are pretty cool. When he goes to that clone factory, he sees all the clones of. Is it Boba Fett's dad, or is Boba Fett's dad a clone of him?
Well, it's Jango Fett, and it's his son, but it's not his son; it's his clone.
It's his clone, right? Yeah. So they sort of picked it up, but I was just more excited the fact that there was someone called Boba Fett in there, and he was a kid. And maybe you find his origin story, and you do.
You kind of do, yeah.
Oh, you absolutely do. Anakin already floating the idea of the Empire. I mean,
can I go through this bit? Or
yeah, sure.
I mean, this was the thing, because also before that, so we'd had the kiss as well, and the whole of that scene, you know, when he was like touching her back and everything, and it's like I've got down here like creepy looks, more creepy looks. She doesn't look convinced. Why are they kissing?
Yeah,
like it looked that was really odd.
Yep.
But then also he's super jealous as well. Like and so you look at this so far. If you think of the film so far and how Anakin's been displayed, he has no positive qualities whatsoever. And he's been, up to this point, he's been arrogant, whiny, creepy, angry, and now he's demonstrating that he has fascist tendencies.
Yeah, he does, he totally does. I mean, he's a completely unlikable character. I mean, you know, if the story is see how Anakin Skywalker goes from the good side to the bad side, I've still not seen him in the good side yet.
No, he's been an arsehole for the most of the film.
He was an arsehole throughout most of episode 1 as well. I mean, don't lie to the Jedi that you've won races and shit. Yeah, come on, mate. Yippie's not getting you out of it now.
But then also, like, he argues for dictatorship as well, and then she's like, and then he just says, well, if it works. And it's like, why?
I know. It was like,
at that point, why isn't she noping out by that point?
I know, yeah. I'm just going to leave now.
Yeah.
Instead, they were rolling around on the grass. Then I put, I haven't quite got to the point yet, sorry. Lucas can't do romances, but I've just written down. I'm not really sure why the army is needed or why Obi-Wan is in support of it. Is he bullshitting so he can find out more? And we find out that, yes, he was. So that was pretty cool. I wonder why the Force is unable to sense the friend zone. I quite like past me. I'm quite funny every now and then. There is zero chemistry between these two actors.
Absolutely, yeah. There's none at all.
The way they talk to each other, it seems awful.
Yeah.
There's no real reason why they don't get together either. The reason seems to be she doesn't want to and he can't take a hint. Well, it's true. Like throughout the whole bit, she's like, "But we can't get together. We have to fight against love. And I was sitting there going, "Why? Like what? Why?" And then at first she was like, "Oh, it's because Jedis can't love," and he's like, "No, Jedis can totally love."
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, we can't because what? Like, because why? You haven't offered up, George. You didn't offer up a good reason why they couldn't get together. Now, we all know it's because there's chemistry. There's no chemistry there. They're two cardboard cutouts standing in front of each other while someone recites My First Romeo and Juliet book like, out the back of them. But it's you know. In the reality of the situation, they keep mentioning why they can't get together, or they keep mentioning that they can't get together, but don't explain why. Like, there's no reason there at all.
See, also, I mean, because I've watched a couple of things, obviously, like dissecting this and talking about like how they could have done this better. Can I tell you one of the points I thought was quite good with that?
Go on.
Was that, well, because the thing is if you're looking at like, because obviously they have to get together because it's for the plot so that, you know, Luke gets born and all that kind of thing, you know, in the future. It has to happen. You know, he's got to bring these two characters together. But as you said, there's no reason at all. There's no real reason given why they can't, and it's just her doing all that. What could have been better is if instead he'd have been all like fully dedicated to the whole Jedi thing, and she was the one trying to tempt him instead, like to do it, to like break out of it, and then there could have been some conflict over that, whereas he'd have been all like,
that I mean, that's already a million times better than the nothing that George Lucas had to offer to the
rather than him doing like all these creepy looks and all that kind of thing. If she'd have been the one that was driving it, it would have been so much more interesting.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. Absolutely right, because then you wouldn't have... Because you're assuming as well that she's like thinking, actually, you're like way younger than me, and I remember you when you were a little kid. So it's kind of like, I mean, if she was more attracted to him, that would have been more interesting. Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Right, okay.
Can I also... Because we had that scene with Django as well. Like when Obi-Wan like talks with him. You remember that bit?
Yes. Well, in the thing.
Well, when they
in the factory,
yeah, and he sees him like to it. I thought that was one of the best scenes in the film. I thought that was brilliant. That
really,
Well, I thought it was great because of the way that they nailed that whole thing of like they both know really what's going on, and they're sort of like dancing around it, but like not really saying anything, and you know that both of them know that there's something's going to happen. And then I just thought it was communicated really well. That I thought it was that was. I think maybe it's also because the acting prior to that had been so terrible with like Amidala and Anakin and everything that when it got to that, I was like, oh, actually, yeah, this is quite good acting.
The acting for Obi-Wan is way better in this film than it was in Episode 1.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah,
he's starting to nail the character now. You know, but yeah, no, you're right. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. So well done. Although I didn't make note of it, so it couldn't have had that much of an impact on me. Okay, yeah, so he didn't know about the army, and the Jedi are dead against it, which made sense. I will say this about that plot, though. Am I supposed to have known... Oh, here we go. Not really sure who the Jedi is, who they say ordered it. Am I supposed to know?
Okay, you're not... Because this is another weird thing that I picked up from... looking at stuff over the years. It turns out, so they say that the order was placed by this guy, Master Cypher Dyas, who was like a Jedi from before. It turns out that in the original script, it was actually supposed to be like it was Darth Sidious.
I was just about to say that makes sense if it was him.
Yeah, and it was supposed to be that, but then apparently there was a mistake when it was like copied out or something, and it became that. And George Lucas was like, "Oh no, that sounds good. I'll keep that instead." And so
that's got to be bullshit. That is you. That's got to be bullshit, James.
There's so many things like that in Star Wars.
Yeah,
seriously.
But how much of it is actually true?
Almost certainly a lot of it is true.
I don't know about that. Well, you're saying that it come out wrong in the print, and George was like, "Let's roll with it." And there's no way. There's no way. I don't believe that. I don't believe it.
That is what happened. But yeah, go on.
How do you know that for sure?
I'd have to watch another one of those documentaries where they talk about it, because it's there are.
The answer is it sounds like
it right now.
It sounds like you don't know that for sure.
Well, yeah, not 100%, but it's like I'd have to check my sources and find out.
I've got a feeling, right, as well, that a lot of these stories are just Star Wars fans, like, coming up with this nonsense and going, yeah, it sounds right, yeah, and then it becomes fact.
Because most of them are from documentaries that have been done.
Okay.
Seriously.
I see that documentary where he goes, oh, what, it's just printed out wrong, and I thought, fuck it.
That's not what I said. I said it was in the drafting process. It got changed or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Go on.
Yeah, but that's not what you... Okay, whatever. Of course, Anakin is fucking up his mission, right? I mean, yeah, that was obvious. Because there was that line from Obi-Wan saying, do not change course of your mission without contacting the Jedi Council. And I was like, he's gonna... Like, back then, I was like, that's gonna happen, but fine. Is Obi-Wan fighting Boba Fett's dad? Pretty cool fight. So that was technically his dad. It was pretty cool, that bit, I thought. The fight on there, the loads of sliding around, and I mean the physics didn't work in the swinging of the wire that he was hanging from and stuff. It was like because he dropped straight down instead of like swinging at any point. There's a bit where he just like drops flat down, and it was like that don't seem like that should be physically possible, but fine. Who cares? Back to Tatooine. Is this what you were talking about with them returning to the planet?
Yeah, they go back. Yeah,
they had purpose to do that though, right?
They did in this one, yeah. There was a good reason. Although, yeah, I've got a lot of problems with this bit that's coming up.
Yeah, I know, same here. I know you said they go back to places too often, but I like it when they go back here. Then it cuts back to Obi-Wan flying through the asteroid belt, throwing those bombs. That was phenomenal, I thought.
Yeah, with the seismic, like the sound bombs.
Oh my god, that was so fucking thrilling. Like, I mean, I love shit like that in films where it completely takes you by surprise. Where he throws those bombs, and I had the TV up too loud as well, so it was like, Joe was sitting next to me. She was just like, "What the fuck? We've got 2 kids in the house. One of them's a baby, like asleep in the next one. It feels like a bomb's just gone off in it." But every time you chop one of those, like you just waited for that sound to fire off again. Not only that, it looked cracking, and it was quite a thrilling little ride through that asteroid belt field.
Yeah.
What is it? But yeah, no, it was pretty cool, I thought. At this point, I'm halfway through this movie, and so far, I think it's way better than episode 1, right? So that's just the note that I wrote down.
Okay.
Just a thought. I know Obi-Wan is with R4 now, but he was with R2-D2 a lot in the first film. If they wipe the droid's memory, this is me thinking too far ahead, but if they wipe the droid's memory, why didn't Obi-Wan recognise R2 in A New Hope?
That is one of the primary questions that a lot of people often have.
Really?
About that. Yes,
oh,
it is.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm glad I picked that out then.
Yeah.
Because it is because I'm assuming from what we've spoken about that at some point in the next film, their memories get wiped or they get reset to factory settings or something.
Yeah.
Factory settings. That factory being Anakin Skywalker's bedroom. But yeah, I've got a feeling that their memories get wiped, and that explains the whole why the droids don't recognise Darth Vader and stuff.
Yeah.
But then, Obi-Wan
doesn't get his wipe, does he? So it's like,
holy shit, you're R2-D2, yeah? I remember you.
Yeah, because he's also because he says that line. He's like, I don't seem to remember ever owning a droid, and it's like, well, it's quite a lot.
And not only that, right? Okay, you could say, well, of course not, because they did these are prequels, and they had to get the characters in there. Just make sure they never meet in the prequels. Then job done. That question doesn't need to be asked. It's just silly. It's not thought out well enough. Weird shot of some shadows, Anakin and Amidala. Did you see that shot?
Yeah, that was quite a good shot, though.
It wasn't. It was awful.
It was because he looks like Darth Vader in that shot.
Right.
The other way it is.
But then it cuts to them again. If you keep it on that shot, then and then cut to something else. Don't then cut to a wide shot where you see them. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of like I just thought it was weird that they showed those shadows on the wall, right? And you got the imagery, and then it just cut to them again. It should have cut away to something else and then come back to seeing them together. Make the point at the end of a scene rather than in the middle of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It just felt clumsy. Anyway, Joe at this point, while they were talking, turned around to me and said, "Just ask me, have they done it yet?" She's not seen these films either, but she was getting frustrated with the sort of the how long this took to get anywhere. Do they ever find a good actor to play Anakin? This one's not great either. It's amazing that a film with this budget can have so many bad performances in it. It was the same with Episode 1.
This is another thing I looked up, actually, because, Hayden Christensen obviously got quite a lot of abuse for this role because it's not great. But they auditioned a lot of people for the role of Anakin Skywalker, including Christian Bale, Heath Ledger, and Leonardo DiCaprio.
Wow.
And so he was chosen, though, by Lucas, this is Hayden Christensen, because he thought he looked good together with Natalie Portman. That was honestly the primary reason, was because he thought he looked right.
But he failed because there was nothing between them.
No, absolutely nothing at all. But can you imagine what this could have been if it had been
Leonardo DiCaprio? Yeah,
exactly. It could
DiCaprio
have been amazing.
would have been incredible in this role.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Then the dialogue wouldn't have improved.
No, but you can still, if you've got better actors, you can kind of work with that, can't you?
Yeah.
It's the original Star Wars films, the dialogue in that isn't brilliant, but they still managed to sell it. I
don't want to dig the actors out either, because it could just be the direction. It could be the fact that the script is terrible in places. I'm not going straight for the actor. They might have gone on and done great things. I don't know what, but they might have done. Right, okay. Holy shit! Anakin's mum's death scene was fucking awful. The way she just flops back like that. I
barely laughed when that happened.
Yeah, that is the single worst scene I have seen in all of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right up to the end of this film, in the 5 films that I've seen, that was just unbelievably bad. Was the fact that she clearly had a bit of red painted on her, that's supposed to look like a cut, but it didn't. And the fact that she goes, she struggles to talk in that really ridiculous way, and then she just flops back out of nowhere. It is just hilariously bad. I was like, no, you were laughing because you'd seen it before. I was just going, oh my god, like, I was properly cringing, like properly.
Yeah. I mean, also the whole of that, and prior to that, you know, where he has that like dream sequence, or not dream sequence, you know, when he's all like, you know, having a nightmare and everything, and it turns out it's about his mum. But then you're just thinking, has he never checked on her before this point? Because there's nothing about being a Jedi that says you can't ever like check on someone to see if they're all right. And
no, I know, but like I'm assuming that he thought that she was fine, but then because it wasn't a nightmare, was it? He was picking up the
what it was. Yeah, but even so, you're just thinking, why didn't he bother?
I didn't even fit. It just didn't even cross my mind that thought.
Because that comes up. I mean, that comes up in a minute as well. Like, I'll talk about that a bit more because I just think it's crazy. I mean, because my problem with the whole of that is that this is where it felt like this was like shoehorned in to give him a reason to be bad. Do you know what I mean? It didn't feel like it had been like it didn't feel earned at all. That to me.
I think it works. I think him returning to go and visit his mum and his mum dying, I think that works, right? As an idea.
Yeah, it works.
It's like the first step to the dark side for him, isn't it?
It works, but then, I mean, afterwards, you know, when they're like doing the burial, and then he's just saying, like, he's going on about how he wasn't able to save her, and like, why couldn't he have done something? He could have just given a phone call, like, over the years, you know, just to see how you're getting on. He didn't even know she was married.
Just send her a Facebook message.
Exactly. I mean, he could have done something. Yeah, just say like, how's things going? All right?
Hey, mum.
Yeah, exactly. And then he's all angry and saying, "I miss you so much." It's like, well, he didn't miss her that much. He didn't bother going and see her for years.
How are you doing, Anakin? Well, I really, really fancy Amidala, and Obi-Wan is really, really being a dick.
He's holding me back.
Oh, sorry to hear that, hun. Anyway, gotta go now. I'm a slave in that. Right, okay. Ha ha ha. When Anakin is talking about killing everyone,
I know,
and they play the Darth Vader theme tune, about on the fucking nose. Like it was just like they didn't need to do that as well. Like a little bit of subtlety would have gone a long way with this. You know what I mean? They might.
But he does all that, and he does all the shouting and like, you know, chucking stuff or whatever. But then again, you've got like Amidala, who's like no problem at all with his fascist tendencies. She's just like, she said to him, to be angry is to be human, and it's just
she likes a bad boy.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Oh yeah, that Count Dooku guy. That's what I've written. Dooku, right?
That's a George Lucas joke. That is, but go on.
Oh yeah, totally. I wasn't making a joke. I genuinely just that's what I thought his name was at that time. And
sorry,
no, you're right.
Yeah, that's that coughing from earlier when I had that laughing fit. It's messed me up.
I forgot all about him, and they've just mentioned him again. The ship design on Anakin's ship is well shit.
Yeah,
like
it's too shiny, isn't it?
Yeah,
all of that stuff's too shiny.
It reminded me of Flight of the Navigator.
Yeah.
You know that ship that morphs and changes? It's just like a big metallic blob. Like that's what it looked like. It was well crap. Okay, this is going seriously downhill right now. Nothing's really happening, and everything is so on the nose that it's getting a bit silly.
Mm-hmm.
So Dooku is a good guy. He knows the truth. I put Dooku is a good guy? ? He knows the truth. Because he was saying, look, Palpatine is running the Republic, and he's like, he knew, didn't he?
Oh yeah, of course he knows. But, he's part of the whole thing, isn't he?
Yeah, but this makes the whole thing confusing. Like, why was he telling Han Solo that? Not Han Solo, fucking hell, Obi-Wan. Why is he telling Obi-Wan that?
I think maybe he was hoping he'd go over to his side or whatever. I mean, that was the only reason why he would have told him that.
But then the risk is that he goes back and they know the big reveal that actually Palp is also the bad guy. Like,
yeah,
that was a gamble, a really weird gamble.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, also because obviously you find out, you know, later other stuff about that. It's strange.
Okay. Right, Jar Jar speaking to the council feels a bit like what? Right. Okay.
That was awful.
Jar Jar speaking to the council feels a bit like what it will be like if Boris becomes PM. Seeing R2D2 and C3PO arguing is just reminding me of how good the first three films were.
Hang on, you've also missed another bit from this.
Go on.
So Jar Jar does they have that vote in the Parliament, and Jar Jar's the one that basically gives Palpatine unlimited power.
How do you mean?
Okay, so they had the vote.
I missed this then. Go on.
Okay, so the thing was, right, is they basically had a Hitler-style enabling act, which was so that, what's his name, Palpatine could, like, raise an army, you know, and he gave him, like, executive powers to basically do whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
And it was Jar Jar that suggested that and put the vote forward, you know, for it to happen.
And it passed.
And it passed, yeah. So the whole thing's his fault, like, pretty much.
So, I mean, yeah. I mean,
they manipulated him to make him do it, but it's still, you know, he was the one that suggested it.
Who would put him up, though? Jesus.
Exactly. I mean, that's another thing that's ridiculous. I mean, why would you want him as your MP? It's, mind you, we're in Brexit Britain, aren't we?
Look at where we're at. Yeah, so seeing R2-D2 and C-3PO, thankfully, I thought, in my opinion, the magic still continued with those two characters throughout this film.
I don't agree.
Why what don't you agree?
Okay, so it was good to have them back, and in the beginning it was fine, but then I didn't think that the comedy worked at all in this film.
I thought it did.
I really don't think it did.
I thought it did. I think because you hate the film so much that you also panning that in with it.
No, but he was just like, I mean, C-3PO was just punning constantly about everything. Like,
punning?
He was doing puns constantly about everything.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, the bit when he was, you know, the big battle in the arena, like, yeah. You know, and then, you know, his head gets pulled off, and then you've got like R2-D2 like pulling his head, and then C-3PO saying, "Oh, this is really a drag," and then like he got next to his body, he's like, "Oh, you could sound beside myself."
I thought that was funny. I thought it was
terrible.
funny.
It was just one after the other, Dave. It was just constant.
I also thought it was funny when he was like walking along, just going, "Oh, sorry about this." Like his body's just shooting everything up. I thought it was great. Like, and when R2-D2 accidentally like drops him down. I mean, I've mentioned it before. I love it when bad shit happens to C-3PO. I think I love it because I don't know why, because I like the character. It's not like if bad stuff happened to Jar Jar, I'd appreciate it on a completely different level. But like, but with C-3PO, it's just funny. I don't know. I thought it maintained the good level, the high level that I've got for those characters. So we have to disagree on that point.
They were better than Jar Jar, obviously.
God, yeah.
But it was still mostly just pratfalls and stuff, and it was just. I mean, it was also like R2-D2 being able to fly as well was odd.
I think I talk about that, right? So Anakin fighting on the conveyor belt just seems pointless. C-3PO getting mugged off again, first pushed by R2, and then his head comes off. I love it. I've actually put that. How many lives has R2 saved now? Like, he just goes around saving lives non-stop, that little fella, doesn't he? Because he saves Amidala's life by turning. I thought that was great, that bit. Like, we haven't seen a time limit peril like that in these films for a while now, right? But it was proper horrific. She was in that big bowl thing with molten lava just about to be poured on her. Last minute she gets saved, which you always knew she would. But I thought the peril was spot on. In fact, actually, I went into this factory scene thinking this is going to be awful. Like the fact that
it felt like it was a video game. Like the whole thing felt like it was shot that way.
Not so much. It was more like, why are you acting as if you're doing martial arts against machinery? Like, why are you waving your lightsaber about when you're not fighting a person or a robot? You're fighting machine parts. Like, it was weird. But then the longer this scene went on, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done. Like, proper old school, you know, lead characters in peril stuff. I thought it was quite good. So actually the scene in the factory was pretty good in the end. I like that they made you think Anakin was going to lose his arm, because obviously, you know, Anakin loses his arm, and they teased that this was going to be the big moment, but then that made him pulling his arm out unharmed. It was quite surprising. So that was pretty cool. Right, okay, so I skip forward now to because they get caught by, what was the dad's name? Something Fett, Jugger Fett or something. Jango Fett. So they got caught by him, and now we're in the execution scene, Worst use of I've got a bad feeling about this ever. I mean, it's not even a feeling; it's right in front of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like usually it's like, oh, we're going into a base and we've not been here before. I've got a bad feeling about this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Get it then. Okay, you've got your little catchphrase or whatever. But when a monster with huge teeth is screaming in your face and then Anakin goes, I've got a bad feeling about this. No, it's not a feeling. You're not having a feeling. You're actually in trouble now. Like, you can't use that line just in... Like, you can't just go, shit, we've had this whole film and we haven't had that line in yet. Just sling it in anywhere. Let's just fuck it.
I'm sure they'd had it earlier in the film as well.
No, I think it was... I would have written it down.
Really?
I think it's the first time they say it, yeah.
But there's also... I mean, prior to that, you've also got the scene where she confesses her love for him as well in the what's it called? Just before they're about to be led out. And that's awful. Yeah.
I mean, the whole love stuff is awful. I think we've covered that enough, though.
Yeah, but come on. She does that whole thing where she says, I've been dying since you came back into my life. I've been dying a little every day.
Yeah, can you speed up, please? Okay, Count Dooku is not a good guy. They got out of those chains way too easily.
Yep.
Like 3 different ways of getting out of chains. They all had different ways of getting out of those chains.
Yeah.
That means that chains aren't very good. Yes, all the Jedis are turning up. This is great. Ha ha ha. C-3PO's head on the other robot. The whole fight thing is great, right? So
really?
I really liked all the Jedis turn up and battering everyone. I thought that was really thrilling.
Okay, so what I didn't like about that was, when they first turn up and then they all like ignite their lightsabers, and it's like, what was all that posing about? That was just really odd.
They're Jedis, man. Like,
it was just odd, and they were all like, I thought the Jedi extras weren't very good, and what it confirmed to me is that like lightsaber stuff only really works when you've got like 1-on-1 or like a couple on like one or whatever,
I disagree.
Than like in like a massive group like that, because it all
totally
just becomes
disagree.
a mess.
No,
and
totally disagree.
I mean, if you think back to the scenes, like the execution scenes that we've seen in other films, right?
Yeah.
You've got like Jabba trying to kill Luke, and like with the Rancor, and the stuff on Jabba's barge and all that.
Yeah.
All of that had like a feeling of threat that something was going to happen. This had no tension whatsoever.
No,
or
but
any
it wasn't
sort of
about that.
Threat.
It wasn't about that.
What do you mean?
It wasn't about that. Like, it wasn't about the tension at that point when the Jedis show up. You knew which way it was going to go. Like, it wasn't about building tension during that fight. It was more like when you see all those lightsabers go, you're just like, yes, you're just going to see Jedis kick the shit out of everyone. And I was bang up for that. And then they did. They just went around lobbing heads off and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, yes, get in. Like, I thought that was great. I really enjoyed it.
It's just, I think part of it was because the CGI I thought was really bad at this point. And there's that bit with that woman, she hits someone and she's like going, and it just sounds really bad.
I didn't pick up on any of that. I was really enjoying that.
They just looked like really bad extras. It wasn't very good.
I'm not with you. I don't agree with you. I the moment all those lightsabers came on, I was like, it's about to go down. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I got excited about it. The tension stuff. The fight with Count Dooku. That was where the Dooku tree. That was where like those tense fights were supposed to be. Right. This wasn't about a tense fight. It was just about a bunch of Jedis kicking ass. We've never seen that. We've not seen that in Star Wars.
I know, and that was the thing that most people were looking forward to for this, because everyone was like, "Oh, the Clone Wars. That's when they're going to be doing that." But I just didn't like the way it was presented. I just didn't like it.
I liked it.
Visual mess.
Boba Fett picking up his dad's head was dark. Like, actually just picking up your dad's head, but I suppose if it's a clone, it's a little bit different. Okay, so they're making the Death Star. Makes no sense. Crowbarred in?
Kind of.
Those, because it was those bug people, right?
It was the separatists, like the people that are trying to leave the Republic, were the ones that seemed to be building the Death Star.
Yeah, it didn't really work for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had... Okay, they passed the blueprints onto Palp at the end. And, okay, fine. But why are they so involved in creating the Death Star? It just felt like it should have come from a better place, or at least be left as though it was built by the Empire rather than these weird little bug creatures.
Yeah.
Did you not have a problem with that, or?
Not really, because I had bigger problems with the film. So
Okay.
that was I didn't care about that by that point.
Okay. Count Dooku is a bit shit, though, isn't he? Not a great villain. Like, his clothes and his style and everything about it didn't scream villain, did it?
Not particularly, no. I mean, he was certainly not as good as... he like Darth Maul, you don't really see him very much in Episode 1. But there was still... I know you said, like, he looks like a, WWE, like, wrestler or whatever from that like that era. But there was, like, a presence about him as well.
I didn't feel that presence with Darth Maul at all. I didn't like that character that much. No, I didn't. And I mean, don't get me wrong, he was slightly better than the Count, because the Count just felt like someone's geography teacher, quirky geography teacher. I don't know. He was worse. There's no doubt. But I didn't have any love for Darth Maul, really. That fight at the end was not too bad, but it just didn't come across very well to me. Anyway, Amidala is getting less and less dressed throughout this film. I mean, there was that one scene earlier on where she was barely wearing anything, but then she gets like in this full suit and just bits of it get ripped away throughout the film, and it's like, there's a bit where it's like, is this needed?
That's probably Anakin with the Force, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh no, look, that monster nibbled off a bit of your top. What monster? There was a monster there, nibbled off your top anyway. Sorry about that. Right, okay. Now Anakin loses his arm. Still shocking. It was still a bit shocking, wasn't it, when he gets his arm lopped off? Holy fuck, Yoda fighting. He's a badass. I love Yoda throughout this film. I've loved Yoda throughout all the films that I've seen, really. He didn't do much in Episode 1, but what I was interested in... There's two things, right? The first being... what was the response to Yoda, seeing Yoda fight?
I can tell you what the response was in the cinema that I was in, which was everyone was laughing.
Really?
When that happened. Yeah, everyone was laughing because but I don't think it was laughter in "this is rubbish." It was more kind of like just shock, like when that happened, because
like he's like jumping up and like flipping around like a madman,
and also because you're thinking like he's an old man, he's like an old whatever he is, so you're thinking, how can he do that? But that's always been explained away as being like, that's because he's using the Force, to be able to move like that. I mean, that's the whole thing.
I wouldn't be sitting there questioning how he could do it. There's a reason why everyone sees him as the master, know. And if he couldn't fight in a lightsaber fight, then you can't really call him the master. You know what I mean?
I mean, I really liked it when I first saw it, largely because because it was such a surprise. Because at that point, before that point, the thought that he was actually, could use a lightsaber and everything hadn't even crossed my mind. Because you're just not... I mean, they reference it earlier in this film, but in all the other ones, there's no indication whatsoever.
Well,
and you would just think,
And he plays with you a little bit as well, because at the start, when he's just taking in all of the electricity and just like... and you're like, oh, that's a defense character, in a video game. Like, he's not going to go on the attack. He's going to use his own power against him rather than fighting with a lightsaber. But then when he starts flipping out and stuff, I loved it. I thought it was great. I mean, as I say, all this film did was extend that love for Yoda. He has not become a shit character to me at any point.
No, I totally agree with you on that.
But but the other thing that I'm interested in is that in this film, they used a model, right?
No. This was the first time that Yoda was entirely CGI.
That makes sense then, because I was thinking, how the fuck would they do that with like a model? Just like spinning it around and shit. Good, right, okay, fine. So that makes total sense to me now. Thanks for clearing that up. Do Jedis bleed?
How do you mean? You mean from the lightsaber?
The fact that everyone seems to get their arm cut off, but they don't bleed.
Yeah, well, that's also another thing, because what it is those blades, they're supposed to like
so hot that they seal the wound as well.
Yeah, they cauterize as well.
Fuck off.
But then the thing is then everyone will say, yeah, but what about in Episode 4? Like in the bar when Obi-Wan cuts that guy's hand
and
off.
the blood goes everywhere.
And there's like blood everywhere. But yeah, so that's just a continuity error.
It hadn't heated up properly.
Yeah,
he hadn't put it on preheat.
In general, it's supposed to be that it's so hot it like cauterizes the wound as well at the same time.
Fine. Does that ever explain like in the films, or is that just people explaining away bits?
That's just explained away.
I love that shit. That's so funny. Star Wars fans going, no, it's so hot it actually seals the wound. Does it? Yeah. What about this character? Just that one wasn't that hot. That one. Yeah. That one was.
I know. Cool. I've seen it explained away as being like the lightsaber has different settings, and he does.
The lightsaber has different. If that's the case, who would ever put it in seal the wound mode?
Exactly. You'd just be thinking, just let them bleed out everywhere. Just.
Okay. I'm a bit confused about Sidious's motivations. He's playing both sides, but to what end?
Okay.
Can you?
Okay.
Yeah,
go into
by
the end of the film. By the end of this film.
Yeah.
Well, because the whole point of this is that he just wanted to get executive powers so that he could raise his own army. Yeah, that was the whole purpose.
Yeah, so that's what I would have missed about the whole Jar Jar. Yeah. That totally went over my head then. I didn't follow that.
The whole thing is, like, with The Phantom Menace, the first film, and with this one, the whole point was to create a threat that was, like, so severe that it would cause, like, the situation whereby they'd have to create him as, like, a dictator so that he could do this.
How was he creating the threat in the first film?
By working with, what's it called? I mean, he was working with the Trade Federation to destabilize the situation. He was helping.
Because he ordered that that attack on that Jar Jar's planet, right? Yeah, gotcha. Yeah,
so it's all just to like create a situation whereby he could then seize power, and it would like be look legitimate, to be able to do that. And so by the end of the film, you've got that whole scene where he's like standing there, and you've got all those like clone troopers and everything, and it's basically the beginning of the Empire there. I mean, it's not, but
that's I know. I saw the connection between the clones and the stormtroopers for sure. Yeah. Even if it's just through sort of similar imagery or whatever, but
yeah.
No, that makes sense. And I will say this: like throughout these films and the ones coming, and definitely the ones that I've just seen, there are moments where this is just my fault where I haven't picked up on something, rather than because I am bad at stuff like that, like picking up on shit like that. So by the end of this film I still wasn't quite sure what he was trying to do, and that actually explains a lot, because the discussion with Yoda saying, like, suddenly Yoda seems in charge of the army. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, he's acting as if they're his army. But, of course, that also means that it's the rest of the Jedi's army, and within that Jedi Council is one particular
which
character.
Is part of the Republic, which is like the whole thing,
Yeah, so
because what you see... I mean, do you remember in... so in the first film that you saw, in Episode 4, when Princess Leia was captured, by Darth Vader at the beginning of the film...
Yep.
I think she says about how, the Imperial Senate won't accept this, and that's because at that stage in that film, there still is voting and stuff going on. Like it's before the Emperor just completely dissolves everything and becomes a complete dictator.
Right. Okay. So she's talking about so at that point okay. So when she says he won't accept this, she's talking about the Emperor.
No, she's talking about the Senate. She's talking about the fact that there is still this power structure there of kind of democracy still going on.
Okay. So he's not still in charge of the Republic
completely of everything. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Right, I'm with you. Thanks for explaining that, because I'm an idiot, and I'm not joking. I do need that, and I will need that again at some point. Anakin's marry. Oh right, okay. Anakin's marrying Amidala. That all happened a bit fast, didn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. The ending was shit. I mean, it wasn't even really an ending. It was a bit like Halo 2. And I will say this, right? This is be interesting. This paragraph is going to be interesting.
Go on.
It's not even a paragraph, it's a sentence. But I have to say, although there were some rough bits in it, it was nowhere near as bad as you made out. In fact, I'd say it was better than Episode 1, and I'm surprised at how much people dislike it. Done.
Okay.
What are you going to do with that statement, James?
Well, can I tell you why I think it's a failure as a film?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the reason I think it's a failure, and the reason I think it's worse than the first film in terms of, well, on every level mostly, is I think mostly
Definitely not
because-
every level. Definitely
No,
not every
okay,
level.
maybe there's a couple of things which are not as bad, but okay. So for me, there are two key points in this film. Like there are two things that this film needs to achieve, so that then it succeeds in telling Anakin Skywalker's story of how he becomes like Darth Vader.
Okay.
The first one of those things is the romance, and the fact that he films this relationship, which is supposed to be like a deep relationship with with Queen Amidala. Yeah, that's what he's supposed to be doing,
Okay.
and that's giving a good basis for why things gonna happen. But in this film, it completely fails on every level to be able to do that. Like it's completely unbelievable. It's cringeworthy, awful throughout the whole thing. You never feel like that there is really a bond between them at all, because the acting is so poor, and also because the dialogue is so terrible.
Yeah.
So I feel that fails. So that's one strike through. That's like one thing of like, okay, that didn't set up a relationship that would then explain why he would go to the dark side.
Okay.
Like that's that one. The second thing I think completely failed was his mum's death as well. And I know you probably would disagree. You probably would disagree with that, but I just thought that as a motivator would have been a good one. But the way it was depicted, the way it was portrayed, was so bad, and like the follow up to it was so terrible as well, that I just felt that is another reason why it doesn't work. And then just in general, I felt that the dialogue in this film and the wooden acting was worse than in Phantom Menace. The only person that I think was better was, Obi-Wan Kenobi, I think was definitely better in this film.
Yeah.
But see, the other thing I really wish they'd done with this is they should have spent more time with Anakin and Obi-Wan Kenobi, like with them together, like building up their relationship, because the amount of time they have together is quite short in this film. And so that's the other key point of the sort of the divide that happens between them when Anakin becomes Darth Vader, is this sort of relationship between him and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the betrayal and everything that he feels. And I don't feel that that's set up, this idea that they're great friends, because I never felt in this film that they were great friends. They just seemed to hate each other. And that's why I don't think that really worked. And it's mostly because it felt like Lucas was rushing through this, that these are the plot points that he knows he's got to hit these, but he just doesn't. Like they're rushed through, and he fails to hit all of them.
See, this is fascinating, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I came into this phone call, thinking that by the end of it we were going to have a massive row.
Yeah.
I think both of us are going to keep our same opinion, but I think both of us is going to agree with each other as well, right? Because you've made your point on why this is such a worse film than Episode 1. The majority of your criticisms of the film are because of where it sits within the Star Wars saga, right? Within the universe of Star Wars, right? And what it represents in that regard, right? Mm-hmm. I have not got a full picture to look at with that. I don't know what's going to happen in the next film. So I'm coming at it from someone who's looking at it as two films, one after the other. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, let me explain why I think this is a better film than Episode 1. For starters, it's way less distracting on many levels. So the plot is way more clear-cut from start to finish. As a film, beginning, middle, and end, whether you like those parts of the film or not, don't worry about that. But it's more structured, and it's way more well put together. Is that a phrase? Way more well put together. Yeah. It's as a compact film, it's not great, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's a brilliant film, because it's not. But what I'm saying, as a film, a standalone film, it tells a better story than Episode 1, right? And it tells it in a better way, right? Second thing, when it comes to distractions, as I mentioned, the first half of Episode 1, the amount of scenes that were shot where a character was unnaturally facing the camera was incredibly distracting, and it made the whole atmosphere just fall to pieces. The atmosphere in this film is miles better than it was in the first, and when I say atmosphere, I mean setting, right? So you've got the city at the start, you've got that big sort of that ridiculous execution place. You've got that the whole plant where they're creating the clones. I thought was really good. I think even during the shit scenes between Amidala and Anakin, some of the visuals were quite incredible. You know, like when they're in that big open field with the mountains in the background, it was quite stunning. There was none of that in the first film. So visually, I think this wipes the floor with episode 1, right? I'd also say that the characters, although the character arcs aren't great and they're mishandled a lot, at least they've got them. As I said, my big complaint with episode 1 is that the characters start and end in the same way. There's no development there whatsoever. Whereas in this, although it's ham-fisted, there's at least a development. Like, Anakin is different at the end of this film than he is in the start. Han Solo is different at the end of the film than he is from the start. Fucking Yoda is. You know, you've got a different view of Yoda. I think it drops the fart stuff, the shit stuff. It drops the needless slapstick comedy, and it handles comedy a lot better. I think some of the action scenes are a little bit more interesting. Now the two action scenes that stuck out, or you know, the main parts of episode 1 were the pod racing, which was great, and the fight with Darth Maul, which is great. Now we've got fights in this that aren't quite as good, but that whole bit at the beginning with the flying around in the cars and stuff was fantastic. It was really good. You had a pretty decent fight with Boba Fett's dad, I can't remember what his real name is, and Obi-Wan. That was pretty good. I really enjoyed, I suppose one of the things we'll never agree on is that I really enjoyed the bit where all the Jedis came and just kicked everyone's ass. I thought that was really cool. So for me, I think that this was a way more coherent thing, although it's got some major issues, and this doesn't get anywhere near the original trilogy, don't get me wrong. Although there's got some issues, I think it's way more clear, it's way better structured, the way it's shot is a million times better than it was in episode 1. And although, yes, there is some bad acting, there was some absolutely appalling acting in this film, there was some awful acting in the first film as well. So, yeah, I understand now why this is such a hated film within the context of Star Wars, right? Mm-hmm. The stuff you've explained is all bang on, and, I can't argue that. But what I will say, as a piece of cinema, it's not great, but it's better as a piece of cinema, like as episode 1 was as a piece of cinema. Now, mm-hmm. The only thing that makes me question that is that A, I really loved the pod racing in episode 1, and B, that fight scene with Darth Maul was fantastic, but unfortunately it was so broken up with all the other shit that was going on, that it kind of took what would have been a really tense, really cool fight, and it kept dragging you away from it, and I found that quite frustrating during that. Whereas this, like, the big moments seem to be a lot more focused. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It does a lot less of that. So it kind of feels like Attack of the Clones has learned a lot from what went wrong with The Phantom Menace. Unfortunately, there's still a lot wrong with it. You know what I mean? That, by the sounds of it, never really gets resolved. But can you see my point?
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that. I mean, yeah, you can say, so it's like it's a more coherent story. You feel like this is totally, like that comes across here.
Yeah, you can see who the good guys are and who the bad guys are throughout the film, and you know the motivations of the character in each scene. You know why they're there and why they're doing what they're doing. In the first, one of my biggest problems was it was like, why are the Jedi still here? Like, what is their motivation here? Why are they going to this planet? Why are they, like, what are they doing? Whereas in this film, you know exactly what they were doing, and you knew exactly what their motivations were. Sometimes you knew too clearly what their motivations were, but at least it was easier to follow, and that helped me, like, sink into it a little bit more than I did with Phantom Menace. Yeah,
and so it's kind of like, compared with Phantom Menace, you're thinking this is points for trying kind of thing. Like they've done better in that respect with like
There's
trying
that,
to
yeah.
make it.
Points for trying, but also the action scenes in this were really, really good as well. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I really did enjoy that opening portion of the film. I really did enjoy the fight with Dooku at the end, mainly because Yoda was just so brilliant in it. That whole Yoda bit where he's stopping things from falling down on his head and he's firing back the electricity and stuff like that, I thought was great. And unlike you, I really enjoyed the execution scene.
Yeah, do you know? You see, I think what you've said is absolutely right about the
I thought
main
you could
reason.
go complete bollocks.
It's absolutely right in terms of like why one of the primary reasons I dislike this so much is that because I'm coming at this having seen everything like over a long period of time, and also
and
like,
researched
I've enjoyed
it and
read
read
exactly
all the other stuff. Yeah.
And so you see, before the original trilogy came out, there was already this sort of like mystique of like, how did Darth Vader become Darth Vader? Yeah, that was always like a big idea of it. How did this actually happen? And I think because for people like me that grew up with that, like, what is that going to be? So then, I mean, it's true that probably nothing was ever going to be as good as whatever's in your head with that, but it just felt like it completely failed to convincingly explain that. Do you know what I mean? And like you said, that's because I've come at this with baggage with all of that sort of thing, whereas maybe you haven't.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can see it in a different perspective.
I wouldn't be surprised if in 5 years' time, where I've probably rewatched some of these films, I've read up a lot more, that my opinion changes, and that I might actually look back on this and say, nah, Phantom Menace is way better than Attack of the Clones. But as I'm going through it, like, for the first time, all I care about is not so much the bigger picture and how it affects all these different stories that I've been reading up on for years. I'm looking at it and going, actually, as a piece of cinema, it's not great, but it's better than Phantom Menace was as a piece of cinema. And of course, it's all subjective. So you know, I'm not saying that I'm definitively right. What I'm saying is that for me, I watched two films, you know, one last week, one this week, and I preferred this one. And I'm not going to lie to try and, you know, sort of toe the line or whatever. That's just the feeling that I got from watching this. I just enjoyed it.
Well, no, because, I mean, not everyone would agree with me anyway about this. It's just that I just felt that as a piece of storytelling, this doesn't work. You know, I don't think it works very well.
As an individual piece, it does. But maybe when you bring everything else into it, it doesn't.
It's just it's the terrible acting and dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, that's
what
awful.
sinks it.
I'm not defending that, and I'm not saying that this is a really good film. I mean, I enjoyed it. There were huge chunks of this film that I hated. You know, as I said, the mum dying scene is one of the worst things I've seen in Star Wars. It's the worst thing that I've seen in Star Wars. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. I don't know how you can watch that and not have to reshoot it. Like, I don't know at what point they gave that the tick. Like, that blows my mind that someone can watch that and go...
And just think that's all right.
Yeah. Not one person goes, look, we're going to have to redo this. This is fucking dreadful. But I suppose also the argument could be made that my opinion is tainted, because I've had, you know, years of hearing you say that this is how much you hate this film, right? Yeah. I've had years of hearing you saying that you hate this film. So I was really, really going into it thinking, I'm going to love this. Despise this. No, I genuinely thought I was going to despise it. And then when some of the scenes happen now, I'm going, actually, I'm doing all right here. I am quite enjoying this. Yeah. Of course,
I think it does. It does. I think it also, like, it lulled me into a full sense of security at the beginning of the film, because I was enjoying the beginning of that film. And that's when I was beginning to think, maybe I was wrong about this. And then it's just, then I thought, no, actually I wasn't. It still doesn't work. It's, yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm quite happy that I got through it without it destroying. I mean, there is part of me that thinks, after these three films, how are we still seeing merchandise sold everywhere? You know what I mean? Like, how has it not destroyed the legacy of Star Wars? because the first three films, I was like, I could see what the magic is. And then I've yet to recapture that feeling from these.
Well, I think also, though, what happened with these films, like after each one, especially after The Phantom Menace, there was always this hope that the next one would regain the magic again. That was always the thing. And that's why, like with the third one that you're just about to watch, there was a lot of hope put on this film. That it was going to be like significantly better, and it was going to be the perfect bridge, as it were.
So you spoiled it for me last week.
How did I?
By telling she's definitely going to die, and that's what's going to turn him to the dark side.
Well, he's already turning to the dark side. Isn't
I know,
right.
But she's definitely going to die, and that's the only intrigue I've got. Is there's two ways why I would turn to the dark side when she dies, right? I know we've had that anger leads to whatever line from Yoda, so obviously anger's a part of it. There's either two ways. There's either he somehow gets convinced by old Palp, or her death is a result of a decision from the Jedis. I don't think they're going to lay Amidala's blood on the Jedi's hands. I don't think, although I think that would be a better
motivator for
that would
anger,
be a great motivator if the Jedis had made a decision, not necessarily like a Jedi accidentally chopped her head off, like while he was playing with his lightsaber or whatever. Obi-Wan drops his lightsaber onto her head or whatever. But I think that would be a great motivator and a great little twist, that they'd made the wrong decision and somehow it resulted in her death. I don't think George Lucas would ever go down that route. I think he will go down the route that somehow There's a line in this that really sticks in my teeth that I thought was terrible at the time, but I thought is going to come back, when he said, I'm going to learn how to save everyone. I'm going to learn how to save people's lives, or bring them back for the dead, or something like that. There's something along those lines where the Emperor's going to go, oh, I know how to do that, join the dark side, and I will show you I can bring people back from the dead, or something shit like that. I think that's the way he's going to go down. He's going to go down the temptation route rather than the revenge route. And I think that, I don't know how he's done it. I can't judge it because I ain't seen it yet, but I think it's going to be terribly mishandled, because what a great idea that would be. Fucking the Jedi's making a massive mistake, and that's why he turns to the dark side. But it's not going to be that, because George Lucas is a maniac. I am looking forward to it, though. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. I am looking forward to seeing the connection. And if he at least manages to do that well, maybe not the decisions to get there, but the transition, I hope he nails that. And then once these are done, I'm quite happy to put them to bed and say, Joe, what? I knew they were shit. They weren't quite as bad as I thought they were going to be, but they were still pretty dreadful. Yeah. And then,
but would you still say that you've got something out of them though, from watching this?
Yeah, I mean, it's been cool. It's been cool seeing how they got to that point, right? There's been moments where it's like, yeah, I did want to see a young Obi-Wan. I do want to find out what turned Darth Vader to the dark side. So yes, I'm glad I've watched them. I'm definitely glad I watched them, because I like being part of the conversation as well, or I'm looking forward to being part of the conversation. But the problem is, once these are out of the way, I really genuinely, James, don't know what the reaction to the Disney films have been like.
Okay.
And
it's very good that you don't know, because that will make this interesting.
I'm really, really excited to see what they're like after that. I'm genuinely excited. I didn't know that there were ones still based around this whole story, and to find that out that there are is very exciting to me. I'm very excited about that.
I mean, it's like continuation after Return of the Jedi. Yeah?
I didn't. That's the first, because we spoke about that, and I said don't tell me, but I think we're at a stage where you can tell me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's incredibly exciting because Luke Skywalker's still alive. Princess Leia's still alive. Han Solo's still alive. Chewbacca. That's incredibly exciting.
Yeah. Especially after these three, after these three you're watching at the moment as well. It's nice to feel that you're going to go back to that as well at some point. It's to the original trilogy, people.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm not jumping too far ahead. I am looking forward to. What's the next one called?
Okay, so this is Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
So the Sith is Palp, right?
Yeah, it's the Sith are basically opposite of the Jedi. Yeah, they're the evil dark side.
They're the bad ones. They're the bad ones. Well, this has been way more fun than I thought it would be, this phone call. I thought we were going to be at each other's neck by the end of it. How could you possibly believe that? But I think we've both got our point across pretty well, coming from two different opinions.
Yeah, I mean, I think okay, so you're looking forward to seeing episode 3, obviously, and you've kind of got an idea of where you think it's going to go.
Yeah.
Are you going to see it soon? What's the plan?
I haven't got the time. It's going to be next week now. Okay. I mean, because it's been quite a short period between. Well, no, it's just been just under a week, isn't it? I watched Phantom Menace on Thursday last week, and I watched. What day is it today? Wednesday.
Yeah.
All right, so I watched What's It on Tuesday. Attack of the Clones Tuesday. So yeah, just under a week. So probably about the same then.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking. I'm just wondering if I'm going to watch it again, but I think I probably will because see these apart from Phantom Menace, these like episode 2 and episode 3 are the ones that I've probably seen the least out of all the Star Wars films. So it's probably a good idea to watch it again. It's Okay,
we'll get it watched then.
All right.
I'll catch you later.
All right, take care.
Bye.